Hello everyone, my name is Mohammad Safavi. I'm a designer and an architect by background. Today we're going to talk about a new method that we introduced in architectural behavioral mapping based on neuro-cognitive, climatic, and spatial data correlate. Our case study was an elementary schoolyard in Iran. The school was founded in 1989 with the overall area of around 89,000 square foot, which 80% of that area is allocated to the outdoor environment. And comparing to other schoolyards in the local area, it provides various different quality spaces for its 600 students. Our research project really started out when the management team decided to renovate the schoolyard in 2019, and their main objectives were to redesign the school in a way that could better fulfill the students' needs and expectations and also allow certain activities to occur in the schoolyard. So Tech Lab, which was a newly founded laboratory at Shiraz University School of Art and Architecture, took the initiative and decided to conduct a comprehensive site analysis as a part of the design processes. So this project was really important for us because it was involving children. And also, more specifically, it was focusing on the outdoor environment, which in several different studies has been shown the importance of outdoor environment and these outdoor settings in children's developmental needs in various domains such as emotional, physical, behavioral, and intellectual. So we ask ourselves, what is the comprehensive site analysis? So it is mostly where all these three different aspects of space-oriented and user-oriented and also human-space interaction-oriented analysis, where it's getting more attention in the recent years, are all coming together in a more up, comprehensive and holistic approach toward our analysis. So in order to really explore the opportunities that the schoolyard provides and focus on how children are actualizing the affordances that the outdoor environment offers to them, we we use behavioral mapping as a reference base for our comprehensive site analysis. So behavioral mapping could be based on different things. For example, it could be based on place, individual, or the combination of all of them, which we used in our study. So we were able to use some of the common methods in behavioral mapping, such as using tracking devices due to certain regulations in the school. So we needed to come up with a new method. So we recorded the students' movement in 3 different days of the week over their break times, and then we use video processing and object trajectory techniques in Python and MATLAB to extract the heat map from the actual movement behavior. And as you can see in the motion heat maps, you see how the program detects students and their movement all over the schoolyard, and how these distributions are reflected in the heat map on the right side of the screen. And then it triggered these two main questions for us: that can we simulate the students' movement behavior in their schoolyard, and also could we increase the accuracy and efficiency of this simulation comparing to current methods and tools that are available. And our hypothesis was that we can actually improve these accuracy and efficiency if we add additional data sets such as climatic, cognitive, emotional, and perceptual data to our analysis. So we use a space syntax, which is one of the well-known techniques that studies the relationship between human and its surrounding, as our basis for our simulation. So space syntax provides various different techniques and methods, but we were mostly focused on the agent-based modeling and analysis for this study, because based on the creator's definition, it provides it provides a good indication of how students and users behave in a space based on the visual graph analysis. And as you can see in the screen, how these agents are moving across all over the schoolyard and how they are shaping the heat map. So our first layer of our data correlates was climate maps. And it was very important for us because Shiraz is located in a very hot and arid area, and you often see how students move toward areas that are thermally comfortable for them. So we needed an approach that could consider the impact of various different climatic analyses, such as humidity, wind, radiation, and air temperature on a student's movement. So we use ANFA, which is one of the most evaluated and reliable softwares for simulating the outdoor microclimate. So the climatic data on the same study days were purchased, and then we modeled the school in ANFA, and then by assessing the effects of several different factors such as atmosphere, vegetation, architecture, and materials on a schoolyard's thermal comfort, we were able to come up with a heat map. And in order to validate the result, the schoolyard's climatic data were measured experimentally in situ using tested data loggers. And then the ASHRAE guideline 2014 were used to calibrate and validate the NVMET simulations. And the results were valid and reliable since the computer model have an NMB of less than 10% and a CV of less than 30% relative to hourly calibration rate data. So our second additional layer of data correlates was cognitive maps. So cognitive maps are cartographic representations of how people perceive and evaluate their surroundings. And it was really valuable for us because we were able to achieve how students are really representing the schoolyard internally for themselves. So there are various different analyses and methods in cognitive maps, but we were mostly focused on the mental sketch map and rating familiar spaces techniques. For mental sketch maps, we asked students to draw the schoolyard's map, and we really wanted to see how students represent the yard internally for themselves and what are the most important and highlighted areas. And then for rating familiar places technique, we ask students to highlight and rate the different areas of the school based on the provided symbols and colors in the legend. And then on the third step, we assess the data, and then we converted those data into heat maps as it is shown on the right side of the screen for each individual person. And then in order to come up with a shared level of spatial knowledge from the survey students, we aggregated the 12 different maps from individual and aggregate all of those into a one single heat map, as you can see on the right side of the screen.
We came up to the idea of what if we use neurotexture as a multimodal, multidisciplinary method by using simultaneous eye tracking, polygraphing, and brain mapping. It's a data correlation plus to previous layers of data. Neurotexture is a new term have been coined by TechLab to address researchers that focus on studying restorative and destructive effects of architectural and urban environmental cues on users' mental well-being, perception, emotion, cognition, and behavior using neurotechnology-oriented approach, computer programming techniques, and new technology tools. To apply neurotexture, we have to develop a new method of behavioral mapping. We call that spatial neurograding techniques. Accordingly, the schoolyard area were divided into 14 graded activity zones. Each zone were represented with a receptor point from where a 360-degree panoramic photo of each zone were taken. These photos were presented as VR contents in the Unity engine-based application developed by TechLab. Later, VR contents were streamed for survey students via FOV VR headset to analyze their emotion and perception conditions in each zone. This is while students simultaneously be connected to EEG headset and polygraph. Finally, the data were interpreted and the results were visualized. The first data correlation plus layer is eye tracking, that is the process of measuring eye movement to determine where a person is looking or what he is looking at. That can be used in architecture studies as it can objectively measure visual attention. Using VR eye tracker headset, the general distribution of survey students' gaze points and areas of interest in each activity zone were extracted and visualized as separate heat maps. Using Python programming, all students' separate zone extracted heat maps were aggregated to develop a schoolyard whole area covered heat map for each student. Using programming one more time, all students' aggregated heat maps were superimposed and correlated to extract an overall student's AOI heat map, as you can see in the right side of the slide. The second and third layers of Data Correlate Plus are simultaneous real-time physiological polygraphing and brain mapping. They have been used in architecture and urban research to study human behavior within an environment, as they can be interpreted to understand respective users' perception and emotion while be there. To conduct our research, our study subjects be immersed within the VR contents taken from each receptor points, representing each one of the 14 graded activity zones as our interpretive markers. Later, heat maps were extracted from the multimodal analysis results by measuring, monitoring, visualizing, interpreting, and analyzing the survey students' perceptual and emotional conditions in each interpretive marked zones. The same procedure has been applied for physiological polygraphing. However, this time the 4 parameters of BVP, EMG, GSR, and respiration have been monitored and measured. Using Python programming, all students' aggregated heat maps were correlated to extract an overall student's emotional perceptual heat map too. The same as previous layers, using Python programming, all students' aggregated heat maps were correlated to extract an overall student's emotional perceptual zone-based heat map and normalized and also interpolated to extract cell-based heat map. Finally, several datasets from each correlated layers were compared, and the relationship between each specific layer to one other is depicted within this table. It's done both in alternating method, which is a cell-by-cell comparison in each map, and also block method, which is zone-based comparison. As you can see, some layers show more integration with the others, like eye tracking and cognitive map with the final correlated layer, or space syntax with cognitive map, while some others show less similarities. More importantly for us is how monolayer heat maps were compared with actual movement heat map in a cell-based format. In this comparison, space syntax shows the most and thermal comfort shows the least consistency, respectively. Moreover, we have compared monolayered heat maps with actual movement HM in a zone-based format as well. In this comparison, cognitive map shows the most, and again, thermal comfort shows the least consistency, respectively. This is explainable, as in contrast to the cell-based analysis, there is no need to evaluate each one of every cells, which is, if not impossible, is very hard to obtain in eye tracking and cognitive maps. For the last analysis, the final correlated heat map were compared with actual movement HM, both in the cell-based and zone-based format. As you can see, the correlated map have around 77% consistency with the actual drone film one. The zone-based heat map have more consistency, as it shows around 87% integration. Our research reveals that the multi-layered heat map can likely predict the student's behavior considering the addition of climatic, emotional, and perceptual characteristics of a student's decision-making. It also highlights the importance of both what we call vertical and horizontal analysis. In vertical analysis, the superimposed correlated map is studied to obtain sufficient vision regarding a student's movement simulation. In horizontal analysis, the mapped layers will be inlined instead and be seen together. This is why they give us qualitative information, more in-depth insights, and novel understanding. Our study also suggests introduction of new platforms and add-ons that promote designers to apply such new method to better simulate broad-spectrum users' behavior in different settings.
During the most recent World Health Innovation Summit, one of the key ideas that was introduced was the SDG cities, and that was interesting in different perspectives because we have the Sustainable Development Goals, which belong to the UN, and by that the global leaders are thinking about setting out new strategies to make the world a better place to live. And at the same time, they were just extrapolating the idea of SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, to cities. And by this, the architects are planning to sort of like design and to come up with the ideas of cities in a whole new idea and a whole new perspective, which is more brain friendly and is less cognitively demanding. By this, the people will find living in the cities, which is providing them with a cognitive ease, and also it's more engaging. And that's important because we're cognitive beings, right? And we're emotional beings. Preschool age and school age is critical. And we know that the environment, the school environment, is also very fundamental to the development of the children, because they are spending most of their time and activity at school environment. Okay, and having the idea of tapping into the aptitude and appropriateness of the architecture at school environment, we have designed this study because we to our best knowledge we didn't find any specific data which is just scrutinizing the importance of the school environment, the cognitive performance, and also the memory and attention prospects, and as well the emotional regulation of the children. And for instance, with regards to the analysis of the brain mapping, we have done the QEEG analysis and came up with the result that when the children were submitted to the VR box task designs, which were compatible with cognitive ease and which was like correlated to the areas of the school environment which was favorably tolerated and exposed, the children started to have a predominance in distribution, the spatial distribution of the beta oscillation, which is the firing frequency of the nerves, the population of the nerves in the frontal part of the brain, at about 12 to 30 hertz. So it shows that they do have an intentional bias, and at the same time they do have a better cognitive control, and consequently they would be expected to perform in terms of the memory and attention in a more favorable way. And at the same time, we have found that the spatial and spectral distribution of the theta activity in the left frontotemporal derivations was less, which indicates less emotional burden, less emotional processing in the brain. So this is a whole new idea that we've been very interested to tap into, and we hope that this is only the beginning of the rest of the chain research our team and other researchers that will be involved with. We can hope that by this we would be able to make cities and environmental contexts in a more cognitively friendly way, which is going to be in line with the SDG cities. Thank you very much for your attention.